When someone you care about is grieving, most people freeze, not because they don't care, but because they're afraid of saying the wrong thing. So they go silent, or they rush to fix the pain, or they offer words that sound comforting but land hollow. Here's the truth. Grief does not need the right sentence. It needs the right presence. When someone is grieving, they are not broken. They are hurting. And hurting people don't need solutions. They need to feel seen. The most powerful thing you can say to someone who's grieving is simple. I'm really sorry you're going through this. No explanation, no lesson, no comparison. Just acknowledgement. Because grief already feels isolating. And the moment you try to explain it away, minimize it, or rush it, you push them further into that loneliness. Avoid phrases like, they're in a better place. Everything happens for a reason. Be strong. These phrases aren't cruel, but they shift focus away from the person's pain and toward your discomfort with it. Grief doesn't want optimism. It wants permission. Permission to feel angry. Permission to feel empty. Permission to feel lost. So instead, say this. I don't know what to say, but I'm here with you. That sentence does something powerful. It tells them they don't have to perform strength. It tells them you're not going anywhere. And if they speak, listen. Not to respond. Not to advise. Just listen. Silence, when it's calm and respectful, can be more comforting than words. If you feel the urge to give advice, pause. Ask yourself, am I helping them or am I helping myself feel useful? Because grief is not a problem to solve. It's a process to walk through. Another powerful thing you can say is, do you want to talk about them? This gives control back to the grieving person. Some days they want to remember. Some days they want distraction. Some days they want quiet. Let them lead. And if they cry, don't interrupt it. Don't rush to stop the tears. Tears are not weakness. They are release. You don't need to say anything during those moments. Your calm breathing, your steady presence, your willingness to stay that speaks louder than words ever could. Days later, weeks later, months later, check in again. Grief doesn't follow a schedule. The world moves on long before the heart does. So say, I was thinking about you today. I'm still here. You don't have to go through this alone. Those sentences matter more than you realize. If you want to support someone who's grieving, remember this. You are not there to make them feel better. You are there to make them feel less alone. And that changes everything. Because healing doesn't begin when the pain disappears. Healing begins when someone feels safe enough to carry the pain honestly. So don't chase perfect words. Choose honest ones. Be present. Be patient. Be human. That's what people remember long after the grief softens. Not what you said, but how safe they felt when you were there. Grief doesn't need fixing. It needs presence. That truth feels uncomfortable in a world trained to solve, repair, and move on as quickly as possible. When someone we care about is grieving, our instinct is to do something, say something, make the pain smaller or lighter or more manageable. We search for the right words, the perfect explanation, the lesson that might bring relief. But grief does not respond to solutions. It doesn't follow logic, and it cannot be rushed into healing. Grief is not a problem to be solved. It is an experience to be endured. And presence is the only thing that truly meets it where it is. Presence means staying when there is nothing useful to say. It means resisting the urge to fill silence with advice or optimism. Silence can feel awkward, even frightening, because it forces us to sit with pain without escape. Yet that silence, when shared, can become a place of safety. For someone who is grieving, the world often feels louder and emptier at the same time. Everyone else continues living, talking, laughing, planning, while their own world has suddenly stopped. Presence tells them they are not invisible in that stillness. It tells them someone is willing to slow down and sit in the same moment with them, no matter how heavy it feels. Grief often isolates people, not because others don't care, but because others don't know how to be present without trying to fix. We say things like be strong or they're in a better place because we want to reduce the pain. But those words can unintentionally create distance. They suggest that grief should be controlled, managed, or explained away. Presence, on the other hand, allows grief to exist without judgment. It communicates, without forcing words, that what they are feeling makes sense, even if it is messy, contradictory, or overwhelming. To be present is to listen without planning your response. It is to let someone repeat the same story again and again, because repetition is often how the mind processes loss. It is to allow tears without trying to stop them, to allow anger without correcting it, to allow numbness without demanding emotion. Grief does not follow a straight line, and presence respects that unpredictable rhythm. One day someone may want to talk, the next day they may want quiet, and both needs are valid. Presence adapts instead of directing. There is a certain humility required in presence. It means accepting that you cannot take the pain away, no matter how much you wish you could. This can be difficult, because watching someone suffer makes us feel powerless. But grief is not asking for power. It is asking for companionship. It is asking for someone to say, through their actions, you don't have to carry this alone. That message, delivered through consistent presence, can be more healing than any carefully crafted sentence. Presence is also not a one-time act. In the early days of grief, support often comes in waves, messages, visits, attention. But as time passes, that support fades. Why? The grief often remains. True presence shows up after the initial shock has worn off, when the loss settles into daily life. It shows up in remembering important dates, in checking in without being asked, in acknowledging that the pain may still be there long after others expect it to be gone. This kind of presence reassures the grieving person that their loss has not been forgotten, and that their pain is not an inconvenience. Being present does not require grand gestures. Sometimes it looks like sitting quietly in the same room. Sometimes it looks like a short message that says, "I'm thinking of you." Sometimes it looks like doing ordinary things together, creating moments where grief is allowed to coexist with life rather than being pushed aside. Presence allows space for both sorrow and normalcy, without forcing either one. Grief changes people, and presence honors that change instead of resisting it. It understands that the person who is grieving may not return to who they were before, and that this is not a failure. Presence does not pressure them to get back to normal. It allows them to redefine what normal looks like now. In that allowance, something gentle and steady begins to form. Not the erasing of pain, but the quiet knowledge that pain can be carried, slowly and imperfectly, with someone else nearby. Words matter most when they are honest and simple. In moments of deep emotion, especially during pain, loss, or uncertainty, people are not listening for eloquence or perfect phrasing. They are listening for truth. Complicated language, long explanations, or carefully constructed speeches often create distance rather than comfort. Honest and simple words, however, land gently. They feel human. They feel real. And in a world that often hides behind noise and complexity, simplicity becomes a form of respect. When someone is hurting, their emotional capacity is already stretched thin. Grief, fear, or disappointment consumes attention and energy, leaving little room to process layered meanings or abstract ideas. Simple words reduce the burden. They don't ask the listener to interpret or analyze, they ask only to be felt. A sentence like "I'm sorry you're hurting" may seem small, but it carries clarity. It doesn't distract or confuse. It meets the moment directly, without pretending to be wiser than the pain itself. Honesty is what gives those simple words their weight. People can sense when language is used to avoid discomfort, or to perform kindness rather than express it. Polite cliches and rehearsed phrases often sound hollow because they are designed to protect the speaker, not support the listener. Honest words may feel vulnerable, even awkward, but they create connection. Saying, "I don't know what to say, but I care about you," is far more powerful than offering a polished line that avoids the truth. Honesty allows imperfection, and that imperfection is what makes communication feel sincere. Simple, honest words also leave space. They don't try to fill every silence or answer every question. They acknowledge that not everything can be explained or fixed. This restraint is important, because pain often needs room to breathe. When words are minimal and truthful, they invite the other person to respond in their own way, or not respond at all. They remove pressure. They say without forcing it, that the conversation can move at the pace of the person who is hurting. There is also a quiet strength in choosing simplicity. It requires confidence to resist over-explaining or justifying. It requires trust that your presence and sincerity are enough. Simple words do not compete with the moment, they support it. They don't try to outshine the emotion or redirect it. Instead, they sit alongside it, steady and grounded. This steadiness can be deeply comforting, especially when everything else feels unstable. In difficult conversations, people often believe that saying more will help more. In reality, saying less with intention often carries greater impact. When words are stripped down to their essence, what remains is meaning. This is why brief, honest statements are remembered long after longer speeches fade. They resonate because they are easy to hold on to. They can be repeated internally, revisited during quiet moments, and felt again without effort. Honest and simple words also protect against misunderstanding. Complex language can unintentionally introduce assumptions, advice, or judgments. Simplicity reduces the risk of being misheard. It communicates care without conditions and support without expectation. This is especially important in emotional moments, when people are more sensitive to tone and implication. Clear, straightforward words minimize harm and maximize trust. Choosing honesty also means accepting that you cannot always make things better. Simple words acknowledge reality instead of escaping it. They don't promise outcomes or timelines. They don't offer certainty where none exists. They say, in essence, this is hard, and I see that. That recognition alone can be grounding. It reminds people that their experience is valid, that they are not overreacting, and that their feelings make sense. In a culture that values quick fixes and impressive language, honesty and simplicity can feel almost radical. They slow conversations down. They shift focus from performance to connection. They remind us that communication is not about sounding right, but about being real. When words come from that place, they carry warmth, even when they are few. Ultimately, honest and simple words reflect a deeper respect for both the speaker and the listener. They respect the complexity of emotion by not trying to dominate it. They respect the listener's capacity by not overwhelming it, and they respect the moment by allowing it to be exactly what it is. In times of pain or uncertainty, that kind of language does not just communicate. It comforts, steadies, and quietly reminds people that they are not alone. Listening is more powerful than advice. In moments when someone is struggling, our first instinct is often to help by offering solutions, guidance, or suggestions. We want to fix what is broken, ease the discomfort, and prove that we care by being useful. But advice, even when well-intentioned, can sometimes feel heavy or premature. Listening, on the other hand, creates space. It tells the other person that their experience matters enough to be heard fully, without interruption or correction. When people speak about their pain, they are not always searching for answers. More often, they are searching for understanding. They want to know that someone is willing to stay with them in their thoughts and emotions, even when those thoughts are messy or unresolved. Listening allows them to organize their feelings out loud, to hear themselves, and to make sense of what they are carrying. Advice can interrupt that process by shifting the focus from their inner world to an external solution. True listening requires restraint. It means setting aside your own assumptions, experiences, and urge to respond. It means not preparing your reply while the other person is still speaking. This kind of listening is rare, and that is precisely why it is so powerful. It communicates respect. It says, without words, your story deserves my full attention. That message alone can be calming, especially for someone who feels misunderstood or dismissed elsewhere. Advice often carries an implied message, even if unintentional. It can suggest that the listener believes the speaker is doing something wrong, or that their feelings need to be corrected. For someone who's already vulnerable, this can feel invalidating. Listening avoids that risk. It does not judge or evaluate. It simply receives. In that reception, people often feel safer to be honest, to go deeper, and to express emotions they might otherwise hide. Listening also gives control back to the person who is struggling. Pain often comes with a sense of helplessness, a feeling that life is happening without consent. When someone listens without directing the conversation, They allow the speaker to lead. The speaker decides what to share, how much to share, and when to pause. This autonomy can be quietly empowering. It reminds them that even in difficulty, their voice still matters. Another reason listening is so powerful is that it slows things down. Advice tends to push toward action, resolution, or closure. Listening stays in the present moment. It acknowledges that not everything needs to be solved right away. Some things need to be felt first. By slowing the pace, listening reduces pressure and allows emotions to settle naturally rather than being forced into